Snow fell in thick, silent sheets over Bend, Oregon, turning the quiet streets into a monochrome postcards. The neighborhood glowed with holiday lights strung across eaves and wrapped around pine trees, but the warmth felt distant to Aaron Brooks as he shoveled the walkway in front of his small bungalow. At 24, Aaron was taller and broader than most men in the neighborhood, his dark skin a stark contrast against the endless white. He wore a faded Carhartt jacket patched at the elbows, work boots crusted with ice, and the kind of steady expression that came from raising a 5-year-old daughter alone while keeping an old man's dream alive. Wheels and grit. The bike shop he'd inherited from his grandfather sat 3 miles away on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just a cinder block building with a hand-painted sign and a bell that jingled when customers came in, but it was his. Every repaired derailleur, every trued wheel, every kid who left smiling on a bike that finally worked again, it all mattered more than any paycheck. The neighbors were polite, always polite. "Morning, Aaron. Bet you could dunk on LeBron with that height, huh? You still fixing bikes. Good honest work, son. Keeps you out of trouble." They meant well. He knew that. But the words still landed like small stones in his pocket, each one reminding him he was the only black face on the block, the only single father, the only one who didn't belong in their Christmas card photos. Across the street lived Sophia Bennett. No one called her Sophie. Not here. Not ever. She had arrived 6 months earlier in a black Tesla that looked like it had been teleported from another planet. The moving truck unloaded mid-century furniture boxes labeled in neat handwriting, and a single ficus tree that now stood in her bay window like a silent witness. 34, CEO. Recently divorced from Richard Caldwell, a tech investor whose name still showed up in Forbes lists. The tabloids had feasted on the story, Ice Queen CEO loses husband to younger model. Sophia had fled Chicago's glass towers for Ben's quiet streets, working remotely from her pristine home office, attending Zoom calls in silk blouses while the rest of the world shoveled snow. She never joined the neighborhood book club. She never came to the block parties. She never smiled at the Christmas lights. Aaron noticed her the way you notice a storm cloud on a clear day impossible to ignore even when you tried. He'd seen her standing on her porch at 2 a.m., wrapped in a camel coat staring at nothing. Seen her delete notifications on her phone with the kind of precision that suggested practice. Seen the way her shoulders curved inward when she thought no one was watching. Lila, his daughter, called her the sad princess in the big house. Aaron just called her the neighbor. Until the afternoon, everything changed. Snow had been falling since morning, heavy and wet. Aaron was clearing his walk when he heard the soft crunch of boots behind him. Sophia stood at the edge of her driveway holding a cream-colored envelope, her face pale against the dark wool of her coat. "You okay, Miss Bennett?" he asked, leaning on the shovel. She startled slightly as if she'd forgotten other people existed. Then she held up the envelope. "Neighborhood Christmas party. Tomorrow night. At the old church hall." Aaron nodded. Everyone had gotten one. He'd already RSVP'd yes for himself and Lila. Sophia stared at the invitation like it might bite her. "Richard's coming," she said quietly, "with his new girlfriend, the one from the photos." Her voice carried no drama, just flat exhaustion. Aaron waited. He'd learned silence was often kinder than words. "Everyone will look at me like I'm the loser who couldn't keep her husband." She continued, the words spilling out faster now. "The cold career woman who chose board meetings over date nights. The one who deserved what she got." She laughed, but it cracked in the middle. Aaron set the shovel against the porch railing. "I get it," he said. Sophia looked at him, then really looked. "You do?" He shrugged. "Different circumstances. Same look in people's eyes. Like you're a cautionary tale instead of a person." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "I have an insane idea," Aaron said before he could talk himself out of it. He hadn't planned this, hadn't thought it through. The words just came. "I could go with you, as your date." Sophia stared. "My date. Pretend," he clarified quickly. "Just for the party, so Richard sees you didn't come alone, so people stop looking at you like you're broken." She laughed again, but this time it sounded different, real. "You pretend to be my boyfriend." The words hung between them sharp and unintended. Aaron felt heat crawl up his neck despite the cold. I didn't mean... Sophia started, then stopped. I just meant no one would believe it. The CEO and the bike mechanic, the age difference, the everything. I get it, Aaron said, and this time his voice was quieter. People see what they want to see. Sophia looked down at the invitation, then back at him. Her eyes were the color of winter sky just before snow, clear, cold, and suddenly vulnerable. Would you really do that? She asked. For someone you barely know. Aaron thought of Lila asleep inside, clutching her stuffed reindeer. Thought of his grandfather's voice saying, "Real men protect what's theirs, even when it isn't." Thought of how Sophia Bennett, for all her money and power, looked like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Yeah, he said. I would. Sophia studied him for a long moment. Tomorrow night, then, she said finally. We should practice. Make it believable. Aaron felt something shift in his chest. Not love, not yet, just the beginning of something neither of them had planned. Tomorrow night, he agreed. Snow kept falling, covering their footprints as they stood there, two people from different worlds, about to pretend they belonged to the same one. The next evening, Aaron stood on Sophia's porch with 2 steaming mugs of cacao in his gloved hands. The snow had stopped, leaving the world muffled and bright under the streetlights. He hesitated before knocking, wondering for the 10th time that day if he'd lost his mind. The door opened almost immediately. Sophia looked different, softer. She wore a deep green sweater that hugged her figure, black leggings, and thick socks with little reindeer on them. Her hair was down loose waves, framing her face instead of the severe bun she usually favored. No makeup except a touch of something that made her lips shine. You came, she said, as if she'd half expected him not to. Promised I would. He held up the mugs. Figured we'd need fortification for whatever this is. She stepped aside to let him in, and Aaron tried not to stare. Her house was everything his was, an open concept, high ceilings, furniture that looked like it belonged in magazines. The Christmas tree in the corner was perfect, all white lights and silver ornaments, not a single handmade paper chain or toddler-decorated disaster in sight. It smelled like pine and something expensive. Sophia took one mug, wrapping both hands around it. Thank you. I wasn't sure what to expect tonight. Neither was I, Aaron admitted. He shrugged off his coat, hanging it carefully on the rack by the door. Underneath, he wore a dark thermal shirt that stretched across his shoulders, jeans that had seen better days. He felt suddenly underdressed, like a work boot in a room full of heels. Sophia noticed. Her eyes flicked over him, not judgmental, just assessing. We should start with the basics, she said, pulling a small notebook from the coffee table. Actual notebook, with bullet points. Aaron raised an eyebrow. You made a list. Of course I made a list. She flipped it open. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. No half measures. He couldn't help smiling. Yes, ma'am. First, physical contact. We need to look comfortable touching each other. Hand holding arm around waist, that sort of thing. Aaron felt his stomach flip. This was insane. He was a bike mechanic from Bend, not some actor in one of those Christmas movies Lila loved. But Sophia was already moving closer, her expression determined. Let's try hands first. She extended her hand palm up. Aaron stared at it for a second, long, elegant fingers, perfect manicure, then placed his much larger one on top. His skin was rough from years of wrench, turning hers soft as the cashmere she wore. Too loose, she said immediately, like you're afraid I'll break. He tightened his grip slightly. Their fingers intertwined naturally, surprisingly easy. Better. Sophia studied their joined hands like a business merger. Now walk with me. They moved across the living room, hands linked. It felt awkward at first, like middle school slow dancing, but after a few steps, something shifted, became less mechanical. Now the shoulder thing, Sophia continued businesslike. When we're standing talking to people, you'll probably need to... She stepped closer, guiding his arm around her waist. Aaron's hand settled just above her hip, warm through the soft sweater. She was taller than he'd realized, the top of her head coming to his chin. Sophia inhaled sharply. "Too tight?" he asked quietly. "No, just unexpected." They stood like that for a long moment, closer than they'd ever been. Aaron could smell her perfume, something clean and crisp like winter air and expensive hotels. Her hair brushed his jaw when she turned her head. "If you look at me like that at the party," she said softly, "they'll definitely believe it." "Like what?" "Like I'm not sure. Like you see me." Aaron's heart gave a hard thud. He started to pull away, but Sophia caught his hand. "Stay. We should practice the other stuff too." "The other stuff?" She laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and surprised. "Sitting close, looking like we actually enjoy each other's company. Come here." She tugged him toward the couch, settling into one corner and patting the space beside her. Aaron sat careful not to crowd, but Sophia scooted closer until their thighs touched. "See, not so bad," he exhaled. "You're enjoying this a little too much." "Maybe." She sipped her cacao. "It's been a long time since I got to be silly. Everything's been so serious for so long." They sat in silence for a minute, the tree lights reflecting in her eyes. "Tell me about your daughter," Sophia said suddenly. "Lila. She's 5. Thinks Santa's reindeer are real and that I can fix anything with duct tape and hope." Sophia smiled. "She sounds wonderful." "She is." Aaron hesitated, then added, "Her mom left when she was 6 months old. Said she wasn't ready for the responsibility, just gone one day. The note said she was sorry." Sophia's hand found his on the couch cushion, squeezing gently. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Lila's better off. We've got each other." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "Richard said I wasn't maternal enough," she said finally. "That I cared more about quarterly reports than starting a family. When I suggested adoption, he laughed. Said it wouldn't be the same." Aaron turned to look at her. "He's an idiot." She laughed again, but it caught in her throat. "I thought I didn't want children," she whispered. "But sometimes I see mothers with their kids, and it hurts in a way I can't explain." Aaron's thumb brushed across her knuckles without thinking. "You'd be a good mom," he said quietly. "You're fierce, protective. Lila would love you." Sophia looked at him, then really looked, and something electric passed between them. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you date much?" He snorted. "Single dad who works 60-hour weeks at a bike shop. My social life's pretty much Lila's preschool potlucks." "That's criminal," says the woman who probably dates senators. "I don't date senators," Sophia said, mock-offended. "Only congressmen." They both laughed, the sound filling the quiet house. Later, when the cacao was gone and the fire had burned low, Sophia walked him to the door. "Tomorrow," she said, suddenly serious again. "Are you sure about this?" Aaron looked down at her, at the way the porch light caught in her hair. "I'm sure," he said. "Question is, are you—" Sophia studied his face for a long moment. "I've spent years being sure about everything," she said finally. "This is the first time in a long time I'm not." Aaron reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear without thinking. "That's okay," he said softly. "We can figure it out together." She leaned into his touch for just a second before stepping back. "Tomorrow night," she whispered. "Tomorrow night." He stepped out into the cold, the door closing softly behind him. Snow had started falling again, fat flakes drifting lazily through the porch light. Sophia watched him cross the street, hands in his pockets, head down against the wind. For the first time in months, her house didn't feel empty when the door closed. The old church hall in Bend had been transformed into a winter wonderland. Strings of warm white lights draped from the rafters, reflecting off polished wooden floors that had seen generations of weddings and funerals. A massive tree dominated one corner, loaded with ornaments donated by every family in the neighborhood. The air smelled of cinnamon pine and gingerbread from the long tables laden with potluck dishes. Children darted between legs, shrieking with laughter, while adults clustered in groups, eggnog cups and hand faces flushed from the heat and the holiday cheer. Aaron arrived exactly on time, his truck crunching over the salted parking lot. He wore a dark green sweater that fit well across his chest and shoulders, paired with his best jeans, and the one pair of boots he owned that weren't covered in bike grease. In the rearview mirror, he'd caught Lila's excited wave from Mrs. Henderson's window across the street. She was having a sleepover with the neighbor's grandkids. He felt ridiculous, like a kid playing dress-up. But when Sophia stepped out into the cold, Sophia was waiting under the awning, her breath fogging in the air. She looked like something out of a dream. A deep red wool dress that hugged her curves without trying too hard, black boots that came to her knees, and a long cream coat draped over her shoulders. Her hair was swept up loosely, a few strands framing her face. She wore subtle makeup that made her eyes look even more striking, smoky, and intense. "You clean up nice, Brooks," she said, a teasing smile playing at her lips. "You look," Aaron swallowed, "like trouble." Sophia laughed, the sound carrying across the parking lot. "That's the idea. Ready?" He offered his arm. She took it without hesitation. They walked into the hall together, and the effect was immediate. Conversations didn't stop entirely, that would have been too dramatic, but they faltered. Heads turned. Whispers followed in their wake like ripples across a pond. "Is that the bike guy from down the street? With Sophia Bennett? You're kidding. She's got to be paying him or something." Sophia's hand tightened on Aaron's arm, her nails digging in just slightly. He covered her fingers with his free hand. "Breathe," he murmured. She did, leaning into him just a fraction more. They made their way through the crowd, Sophia greeting people with her polished CEO smile, introducing Aaron as "my date," with casual confidence that almost hid the tension in her jaw. Mrs. Larson from 3 houses down cornered them by the punch bowl. "Sophia, dear, we were so worried when you didn't RSVP right away. And who's this handsome young man?" "Aaron Brooks," Sophia said smoothly, her hand sliding down to lace fingers with his. "He lives across the street. We've been seeing each other for a while now." Mrs. Larson's eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. "Well, I'll be. The quiet ones are always full of surprises." Aaron squeezed Sophia's hand. "She's the surprising one, ma'am. I'm just trying to keep up." That got a laugh, and suddenly people were crowding around asking questions how they'd met. Sophia spun a story about him fixing her bike after a flat tire near the shop. What he did owning his own business impressed them, whether they were serious. Sophia played her part perfectly, leaning into him, touching his arm, laughing at his dry jokes. Aaron found himself relaxing into it, the role becoming less like acting and more like something else. Then Richard arrived. He made an entrance, of course. Tall blonde, wearing a custom suit that probably cost more than Aaron's truck, with a 20-something blonde on his arm who looked like she'd stepped out of an Instagram filter. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Richard's eyes found them across the hall, narrowing slightly before widening in recognition. His smile was all teeth. "Sophia!" he drawled, making his way over with Lauren clinging to his arm like a trophy. "Didn't expect to see you here. And alone, I assumed." Sophia's spine straightened, but her voice stayed cool. "Richard, Lauren, Merry Christmas." Richard's gaze slid to Aaron, taking in the sweater, the work boots, the dark skin. His smile turned patronizing. "And who's this, the help?" The word landed like a slap. Sophia inhaled sharply, but Aaron spoke first, his voice calm and steady. "Aaron Brooks, Sophia's boyfriend." Richard actually laughed. "Boyfriend? Really, Soph? I knew you were desperate after the divorce, but I didn't think you'd go this far." Lauren tittered behind her hand. The whispers around them grew louder. Someone dropped a plastic cup. Sophia's hand trembled in Aaron's. He stepped forward slightly, putting himself between her and Richard without thinking. "Funny thing about desperation," Aaron said quietly, but loud enough for the circle around them to hear. "It's usually the ones talking about it who know it best." Richard's face flushed. "Excuse me. You heard me." Aaron's voice never rose, but it carried. "Sophia deserves someone who sees her, not someone who treats her like an accessory he can upgrade when the model year changes." The hall had gone very quiet. Richard opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "You have no idea who you're talking to." I know exactly who I'm talking to, Aaron said. A man who lost the best thing that ever happened to him because he was too busy looking for the next shiny thing. Sophia's hand found Aaron's back fingers pressing hard enough to bruise. Richard looked around, realized the entire neighborhood was watching, and deflated slightly. "Come on, Lauren," he muttered, turning away. They left without another word. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then Mrs. Larson started clapping. Slowly at first, then others joined in. Someone whooped. Sophia stared at Aaron like she'd never seen him before. The music started again, Bing Crosby crooning about white Christmases, and somehow Aaron found himself leading Sophia to the dance floor. They moved slowly, her hand in his other at the small of her back. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered against his shoulder. "Yeah," he said. "I did." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "No one's ever—" Her voice caught. "Thank you." Aaron's thumb traced small circles on her back. "Don't thank me for doing what's right." They danced through 2 songs, the crowd giving them space, now watching with something that looked suspiciously like approval. When the music slowed even further, Sophia rested her head against his chest. His heartbeat was thunder in her ear. "This isn't acting anymore," she said so quietly he almost missed it. "No," Aaron agreed, his voice rough. "It's not." Outside, snow had started falling again, fat flakes drifting past the windows. Inside, under strings of golden lights, 2 people who'd started the night pretending found themselves unable to stop, not because they had to, but because they didn't want to. The music faded behind them as Aaron and Sophia stepped out onto the wide stone porch of the old church hall. The cold hit like a living thing, sharp and clean, sweeping away the warmth of bodies and cinnamon-scented air inside. Snow fell in heavy, deliberate flakes, now blanketing the world in hush. They stood at the railing, shoulder to shoulder, watching the parking lot empty. Car lights cut pale tunnels through the darkness before disappearing down the road. Neither spoke for a long moment. Sophia's hand was still in his. "That was—" she started, then stopped. "Intense," Aaron finished. She laughed softly, the sound trembling. "I thought I'd feel triumphant, watching Richard slink away like that. Instead, I just feel tired." Aaron turned to face her, snowflakes caught in her hair like tiny stars. "You should feel proud," he said quietly. "You didn't hide. You didn't let him make you small." Sophia's eyes met his searching. "You made that possible," she whispered. "Tonight. You were my anchor." The words hung between them heavier than any pretend line they'd practiced. Aaron's heart pounded hard enough that he wondered if she could hear it. "Not just tonight," he said. Sophia stilled. "What? I don't want this to be just tonight." His voice was rough, the confession scraping his throat raw. The pretending, the hand-holding, the dancing, all of it. "I don't want to stop when the party's over." Snow settled on his shoulders, melting against the heat of his skin. Sophia's breath came in small white clouds. "Aaron." She shook her head, but it wasn't denial, it was fear. You see how impossible this is. I'm 34. You're 24. I'm me, the woman who lives in the perfect house and drives the car that costs more than most people's homes. And you're the black bike mechanic from across the street." He finished, not bitterly, just stating fact. "Yeah, I see it. That's not what I meant." Her voice cracked. "Isn't it?" He stepped closer, close enough to see the tears threatening at the edges of her eyes. "You've been thinking it since the beginning. Everyone in there was thinking it. Hell, I've been thinking it." Sophia looked away, arms wrapping around herself against the cold. "I grew up with people looking at me like I was either a threat or a charity case." Aaron continued, the words spilling out, now unstoppable. "The big black kid who must play basketball. The scholarship boy who better be grateful. The single dad who's probably got 3 baby mamas and a rap sheet." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm used to it. Been used to it my whole life. But this, he gestured between them. "This is the first time I've been scared of it, because for the first time I care what someone thinks. I care what you think." Sophia's head snapped back to him. You think I look down on you? Don't you? No. The word burst out of her, fierce and immediate. God, no. Aaron, I look at you and I see strength. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. You raise your daughter alone. You kept your grandfather's shop going through everything. You stood in there tonight and defended me when you didn't have to. Her voice shook. I've spent my life surrounded by men who had everything and gave nothing. And then you show up with hot chocolate and quiet kindness and you make me feel... She couldn't finish. Aaron reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing away the tears that had escaped. Make you feel what? He asked softly. Seen, she whispered. Safe. Like maybe I'm not... Everything has to be a battle. The snow fell thicker now, cocooning them in white silence. I don't care about the age thing, Aaron said, or the money thing, or what anyone in this town thinks. I care that when I'm with you, I don't feel like the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. I feel like me, the real me. Sophia's hands came up to cover his, holding them against her cheeks. I'm scared too, she admitted. I've built everything on being in control, on never needing anyone. And now I don't want to go back to that. Aaron leaned his forehead against hers. Then don't. Aaron, I don't want to pretend anymore. He said the words scraping raw from his chest. Not with you. Not ever again. Sophia made a small sound, half sob, half laugh, and then she was kissing him. Not soft, not tentative, hungry, desperate, like something breaking open after being locked too long. Aaron kissed her back with everything he'd been holding in since the moment she'd opened her door in that green sweater. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her close until there was no space left between them. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him down to her, and the world narrowed to just this heat in the cold, this truth under the snow. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia rested her forehead against his chest. I think, she said, voice trembling with laughter and tears, we just ruined our cover story. Aaron pulled back just enough to look at her. Good, he said roughly, because I don't want to be your fake anything anymore. Sophia looked up at him, snowflakes melting on her lashes. Then be my real everything. The words hung between them, fragile and perfect. Aaron kissed her again, slower this time, slow and deliberate, like a promise being sealed. Snow kept falling, covering their footprints, erasing the path back to who they'd been before tonight. Neither of them noticed. Neither of them cared. The days after Christmas settled over Bend like a soft blanket, the kind that muffled the world and made everything feel possible. Aaron and Sophia didn't hide anymore. It started small. A shared glance across the street that lingered too long. Her car parked in his driveway instead of hers. Mornings where he'd wake to find her Tesla charging next to his beat-up truck, looking strangely right together. The neighborhood noticed, of course. Mrs. Larson brought over a casserole and stayed for coffee, eyes wide, as Sophia laughed at something Aaron said. The guys at the bike shop teased him mercilessly when Sophia showed up one afternoon with lunch from the fancy place downtown. Even Lila, who'd been shy at first, now ran across the street shouting, "Soph," whenever she saw her. Sophia fit into their lives in ways Aaron hadn't expected and ways he never could have imagined. She'd sit at his kitchen table in the mornings, hair messy from sleep, wearing one of his old hoodies that swallowed her whole while Lila chattered about preschool and unicorns. Aaron would cook breakfast pancakes shaped like dinosaurs because that's what 5-year-olds demanded, and Sophia would steal bites from his plate claiming CEO privileges. You know, she'd say, licking syrup from her thumb, I used to have a private chef. And now you have me burning pancakes, Aaron would reply, flipping another one onto her plate. Now I have this. She'd correct softly, and the look she'd give him would stop his heart every time. They fixed Christmas lights together. Hers had gone out New Year's Eve, and Aaron spent an afternoon on her roof stringing new ones while she handed him bulbs and tried not to look worried. When he came down, snow in his hair and triumph on his face, she kissed him right there on her porch where anyone could see. The neighbors definitely saw. Aaron expanded the bike classes he'd been thinking about for years. Free lessons for kids in the community every Saturday morning at the shop. Sophia showed up to the first one in jeans and boots, helping little girls learn to balance while Aaron worked with the boys on gears. "You know this is going to cost money," he told her one night, worried. "I know," she said, already typing on her laptop. "That's why we're starting a foundation. Community support for youth programs in Bend with a focus on underrepresented kids. I've got donors lined up." Aaron stared at her. "You're just doing that." "I'm doing that," she confirmed, not looking up from her screen. "Because someone taught me that real strength isn't about what you have, it's about what you give." He'd kissed her then, slow and reverent, until Lila wandered in looking for juice. Richard left town in February. No one knew the details, just that his company transferred him to the East Coast office suddenly. Sophia got the news from a mutual friend and felt nothing. Not victory, not pain, just peace. "It's really over," she said that night, curled against Aaron on his couch while the fire crackled. "It's been over," he corrected gently. "You just finally got to stop fighting." Spring came early that year, or maybe it just felt that way. One evening in March, they sat by the fireplace in Aaron's bungalow, the same one that had felt too small for dreams before Sophia. Lila was asleep upstairs, clutching the new stuffed reindeer Sophia had bought her just because. Sophia rested her head on Aaron's shoulder, watching the flames dance. "If that night hadn't happened," she said softly, "the practicing, the pretending, I'd probably still think you were just the quiet neighbor who fixed things." Aaron chuckled, his arm tightening around her. "And I'd still think you were the ice queen in the big house who never smiled." She tilted her head to look at him. "But you're the one who made me smile again. And you're the one who made me believe in Christmas miracles," he said, completely serious. Sophia laughed, the sound warm and free in a way it never had been before. "I love you," she said suddenly, the words spilling out like they'd been waiting forever. Aaron went very still. "I love you too," he said, voice rough with it. "Have for months, was just waiting for you to catch up." She hit him lightly on the chest. "Arrogant." "Yours," he corrected. Outside, the last snow of the season melted under streetlights running in rivulets down the curb. Inside the little bungalow that wasn't little anymore, not with all the love filling it, the fire burned steady and warm. Christmas had come early that year, and it never really left.